We're 1 minute late, so I'll call us to order at this time. Invocation, Ms. Berry Wells.
That's right. And Father, thank you so much as we come together today to discuss the things of Nash County. God, may we just each one remember, God, we want what is best. God, we just ask you to be with each one of us as we go through this meeting and give us a safe trip home. In your blessed name, amen.
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 Following the agenda, I'm not sure what it is, but second meeting of the month speakers, Stacy.
Right, so the sheet behind your agenda is a consolidation of all the speakers that we've had over time. And
Great.
whether you're familiar or not, but in our second meeting of the month, we generally have someone from a department inside the county to speak, do a presentation, and then we also bring somebody from the outside, generally somebody that we're funding, an outside agency that we're funding. But this is a list of who we've had, with our second meetings not being as regular as normal. I wanted to update you all on this information and just ask that maybe over the next week, week and a half, if you have ideas about who you would like to have come to the second meetings and speak, please send that information to me so that I've got some ideas to work from of who all you would like to hear from, okay?
Do we, Wayne, have anything scheduled beyond this date already?
We've got May scheduled, and we've got, for June, we've got the airport authority, I believe, coming in for the outside. But I just spoke to Stacy this morning. I just think it'd be good to get everyone's input on what they would like, who they'd like to hear from.
So, so for May, you have,
It's already on
it's
there.
already on there.
June, the airport.
Well, what I actually, what I thought in the stocks participating in the May.
We can have stocks.
Well, I had thought for May, we would have, for the external, we'd have Stocks and Harold and Patsy, and they talk about actual status of the park construction. Harold could talk about the naming rights, and Patsy could give us an update on the grants, and then for the internal, we could just have Thomas to give an overall update on the Parks and Rec program. And then in June, we've got
Well, now, Wayne, you got Patsy doing the Citizens Academy for the inside that, according to this list.
well, that
And it's
may
also-
be, but that's different from what I had.
And
But
it's
that's
also
fine, it doesn't
my,
matter.
My budget presentation,
Yeah.
which is noted in 2017 as the inside.
Stacy and I'll work it out, we'll sort it
Okay.
out,
All
okay?
right. And then the only one I remember is the airport.
The airport is scheduled for June for the external. So start with June internal, with any input that you've got, we'll cover it in May.
That
You
has
and I'll
the,
talk about it.
has the airport been contacted?
I have not contacted them.
Okay. For some reason. Wayne, help me remember. I'll send it to you.
You did.
And we hadn't contacted them yet, is
No,
that
I've
correct?
I've sent it to Stacy for the
Okay.
contact.
Okay, all right. And Gary Hodges is probably,
Gary Hodges.
is
will
who
be the
we
one.
contact. Is he board chair now for the airport authority?
I don't know, Rob. I'm
Or
not
is he
sure.
just that, what, is
Not
he
Mullen?
board chair?
Is
I'm
Mullen?
not that.
I'm not
I think
sure.
I'm-
I would think it, Mullen,
He's
Mullins is not.
He's
It
not.
was in Wilson. The last I knew of, a gentleman in Wilson was it.
I'm not sure.
What's his last name?
Hodges?
No, Dina, what's his name? Dion Devin.
Da Vinci or
Levante.
Yeah, I have his number, I think.
Or you need it for.
I don't know.
Okay. Thank you, give me a call. That it on that item, Stacy?
I'm sorry.
That complete that item?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The item number 4 is the farm lease that we discussed yesterday. And it has presenters Z. Lamb and Vince Durham. Who leads off?
Well, administratively speaking, we sent that out yesterday to everyone, should have gotten a copy of the lease from the RFP from 2016. So basically, just want to go ahead to do an RFP for 1 year plus, this year plus 1 year. And he's done some research on the,
Well, we just, yeah, Stacy drafted a lease term to send out to the community. If you do it for 1 year or less, you don't have to advertise it. If you do it for more than 1 year, you've got to advertise it, which is, I suggested that we have these bids coming in on May 20th, and then we could run the ad the 23rd, and we'd do formal approval on the June 3rd meeting.
explain that now. What would come in on the
What
20th?
happens is we get our bid in so we can compute what the lease amount is gonna be, because we've got to put in the paper, we hereby are gonna lease this property for this amount, for this term. We've gotta give 10 days notice, and then we have to approve it at a board meeting.
That's not a 10-day upset notice, that's just a 10-day notice.
Notice of our intent to approve it.
Okay.
Okay.
How you gonna get this out? I mean, how you gonna get it to the farmer through
That's a question for
FSA?
Stacy.
We'll do it, the way that Sandy Hall did it last time was through her listserv.
Okay.
She has a listserv with all the farmers and then the paper.
The lease term here needs to say will be until December 31,
2020,
2020.
this year plus next.
A year and a half. I mean, two crop years. Isn't that right?
That's what they were talking about yesterday, I
Yeah,
think.
I mean, that's up to the board.
How'd you got the figure in there? You got $24,150. That's just a copy of the one we had.
Yeah, that-
Correct.
You,
that needs to
you
come
can
out.
send out an amount. Under rent.
Yeah, that needs to be.
That needs to
And
be
This
blank.
this isn't even the latest version of our farm lease. Charlie and I worked hard to determine what the buyout was gonna be if we ended up terminating it.
Yeah, but this has been updated, but yeah, we need to take that.
Maybe it's in here.
We'll take that out.
You need to
Not
take that
seeing
amount
it.
out.
Might not
Sure.
be, this was the 2016 one.
There's a newer one. In fact, I saw somewhere in my notes, we also had added something in there about them maintaining the grass around that home site,
Okay,
of the Williams home site, and I'll give you that language.
okay. It's in the lease, the new updated lease.
Should be,
Okay.
should be.
You said it'd be advertised until what date?
Made it 20.
May the 20th would be when
The bids would come in, and we have to get it immediately to the paper and try to run it on the 23rd, so that we can meet the 10 days.
Is that the best we can do for this crop year?
Yeah.
That's I can figure.
Yeah. May not get too many bidders. About the only thing after May 20 is soybeans. Our vegetable crops.
So we'll go forward with doing the RFP through the listserv and newspapers, I guess, if we can get it in the newspaper.
Well, I thought maybe we could get it in by Thursday in the graphic anyway.
Yeah.
Stacy, we got something laying here this morning. Is that different from what went out email
It is, I updated it for our purposes
today?
moving forward, correct?
Okay.
She just
And
looked.
the brief conversation we had earlier this morning, have you had time to get those answers, where we stand on the two properties we got? Which is 97 site, it looks like we had at least through the end of 17, based on the information we got
We terminated it in 17, in the middle of the year.
in 17.
I've got Rosemary's email where she sent it to Mr.
So were there no crops planted on it in 17?
Couldn't tell you.
Did we pay him any money?
April 7th, we sent him notice of termination, intent to terminate the farm lease for 115 acres of cultivable land.
And that was in April of 17.
And we refunded him
We refunded the money.
We did, we reimbursed them the full amount of the lease, $20,250.
So the answer is there was no crop on it in 17 or 18. Do we make that, do we acknowledge that in this document anywhere, which I think is important that we do?
Okay.
does that meet the organic
Yes.
It has
requirement?
to be out 3 years, so it would be it would be eligible for transitional organic this year and full organic next year.
Right. But the knowledge is, though it hadn't been planted in 2 years, as I understand, it has some value to it.
Well, it might have just deed value that does value. It can be
Understand.
transitional, but it's got to be cleaned up.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, it's
I
gotta
don't
be
know how
cleaned-
it
gotta
is
be
in the
cleaned
middle of
up.
May, how these farmers looked at.
So
I just don't
we
know.
would say it hasn't been planted crops
2 years.
since 2016.
That's correct. Yep. And then the thing is Middlesex Vince has determined that that lease runs through this year, Vince.
Correct.
Okay. And was that a 1 year or 2 year lease?
That was
3, I think.
3
3 year.
I believe it was.
17, 18, 19.
Okay, all right. And the property that we currently own, I'm trying to look at the whole picture so we can get this all resolved and don't have to meet this point again. Property at the airport that we already owned prior to this last purchase, has it been farmed? Does anybody know?
I have no
The land.
information on that.
We have some land at the airport that we own.
You talking
I
about
think
the
Johnny's been
14
telling
acres?
Sir?
You talking about the 14 acres?
Not the new.
Not what
Not
we
the
just
new-
bought, what we already had.
One we already owned on the other side of Airport Grocery,
Correct, which is 10, 12, 15.
10 or 12 acres. yes.
Somewhere in that range.
Somebody farms it, but I somehow reason, I think the Gateway might have been involved in that, doing that.
We need to see where we are on that piece of land.
Sure.
Put that on our list.
Well, where does the 14 acres or so that we just purchased stand as far as farming?
Johnny.
I thought
Johnny
we
farmed.
were going, we had already agreed to let Johnny keep that this year.
It's in the contract to sell.
Yeah, it was already done for this year.
Already done for this year.
Is he aware of that?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was
I
in-
believe so.
It was in the contract when we bought it, Wayne, that it would stay like that for this year. Now, I don't know whether he's aware of it or not. You say he is,
He thinks he is.
sir?
I think he is. I can verify it.
Well, let's certainly verify that.
When I brought it up the other day with him, he said, I'm not worried about that piece, I'm worried about,
Okay.
I'm talking about the 97.
We'll just make sure we know
Well,
that too.
He's gonna call me. I don't know when he'll call me. And I'm going to refer him to you.
Okay?
And you can share with him whatever
It is in there.
this board has decided to do. And if he's in a position to where he feels like he can bid it, Highway 97, then he'll bid it. If not, then he won't.
Yeah.
And we are doing it for this year and for next year. Correct?
Which will require board action.
When you say require board action, you mean when we get
Acceptance.
it back, we'll take board action then?
Right.
We don't
Well,
need to
when we
take
get
any.
it back, we'll then run the public notice, then we'll have to take board action at the June
Okay.
meeting.
So, we know, everybody know where we are? Stacy, you looking at me? I mean, let's get it cleared up.
I think I'm there.
Okay.
But I'll be working with Vince. I think I need to work with Sue on some language about the organic.
Well, I don't think we really need to get into that part of it. I just think we need to put in here the last year it had a crop on it.
Those that are
2016,
bidding
that's all
on
we
it will
need to say.
understand that.
They'll understand all of that.
Okay, all right.
Apparently that carries some value with it, particularly the second year. Last chance, through that one. Z, do you want to do all the budget stuff, or you want to go to 6 and talk about fees, or what you wanna do?
I think Donna's ready to go through her list of outstanding,
Mr. Boone need to suffer that, or?
I'll take one pass.
or do you want to? Doesn't matter.
What did he say?
One sheet.
What did he say?
He'll wait until after Donna. I think.
Okay, all right. On item number 5, outstanding items from the budget retreat, I think you had an email about this yesterday.
I did, and what I'm passing out now is just to give you an update of where we are, just a quick overview
Of the budget.
of the budget, where we are with estimations, currently what's sitting out there. And I just did it in functional area by revenue and by expenditure, but I wanted to break it down a little bit.
Why don't you go over that first?
Okay, so this is the handout. If you look in the far right column, that's where we are on our estimated revenue at the top. And so with operating revenue, 88,200,864. Transfers in, part of this was our capital project amendments that we did yesterday. One that I did not have on there, which I which I hope to present at the June 3rd meeting, is an amendment for the courthouse project and to be able to transfer $2 million to use for debt service. This is the debt service in our courthouse for fiscal year 1920. The $1,158,442 to transfer that in to use that for debt service from the project. The public safety radio project, what's available next year for debt service is $339,907. And what we have available for the Middlesex Shell building debt service is $306,819 to transfer that in to help cover that debt service.
If I can clarify, last Thursday or Friday, I sent out a status on our fund balance appropriated, and it was 4.6 million, and you see that from the 2.833 plus the 1.805. At the time, we had not identified those monies in those projects that we could use for debt service. So by using those funds for debt service, we were able to reduce the fund balance appropriated to slightly more than what it was last year for the balance and factor for the general fund. So whereas last year you appropriated 2.8 million from fund balance, of course, we've done a lot of amendments this year and it's a little higher now, a lot higher. But we're looking at 2.833. But that includes, as I said, the transfers from those completed projects. That can only be used for project enhancements or debt service, so.
Okay. And then if you move down to the bottom section, that's expenditures by functional area. And so what I don't have included are the items that are on the schedule that I emailed out yesterday. These are the items that we need to discuss that would have an effect on the on the expenditures. But this, I wanted to show you where we currently are in our expenditures.
So
Are
that
there
late-
any?
Oh, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, are there any questions? And I realize this is just a quick overview, but I wanted to give you an idea before we start our conversation.
Just, the public safety includes sheriff, jail, EMS, emergency services, and education includes both the public school system and the community college system.
I know the community college got a slight increase. Is there any increase in appropriation to public schools? Have they requested any increase?
Really, what is this number here?
This is based on
What's
last
included?
year's. I believe the the public schools is the amount they got last year, which is 20 million and a little more, and 1.39 for capital. And for the community college, it includes the amount that they have requested that we negotiated.
You're talking about the,
Community college.
okay.
Yeah.
But how about the public school system? Have they requested?
Well,
are
what
we
we've got
appropriating
here,
any increase?
what we've got here is what they got last year.
So it's
And it's up-
exactly like last year?
Right, it's
Okay.
up, yeah. Any change would come from y'all.
So they have not requested any increase?
Well, they, at the meeting, they suggest
I know cameras and that sort of thing.
SROs,
Yeah.
and things like
But-
that.
But in
That-
terms of, forget the SROs and the cameras, because we talked through that, have they requested any other increases in any area?
I don't believe so at that.
I haven't heard any, I just
Joint
want to
meeting.
confirm that.
I didn't,
Okay.
I didn't, like, last year, they were talking about principals, monies, I didn't hear any of that this year.
Okay.
It was just
Well,
those
you're
two
looking at,
items. It's just those two items, the SROs,
Right,
which is current expense,
that's right,
and the cameras, which would be capital.
which they're already in process with that.
I'm looking at,
At Swift Creek,
And other areas as well,
they are?
yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking at.
But regardless, I think that was something we seemed to be receptive to with the camera situation. And the SROs, we talked through the fact that the General Assembly typically funds those activities, and they may fund more than they're even funding now, I don't know. I believe there was a bill in the House that might have been addressing that. But my concern was more with any other current expense items, like
I didn't take it that had asked for anything else, Wayne.
like supplemental pay or anything like that.
Yeah, that's what it was last year, yeah.
Okay.
No, the figure we've got is what they got last year, and I do not know of any, on current expense, any
Okay.
additional.
Okay.
Well, I'm looking at that line here, 24,018,19, 497, 151, 24,707,377. Difference of what, about 210,000.
And that,
And that is for what?
community college.
Oh,
Most of it is.
It's the community college. The only update that I've included would be for the community college.
For
Because
the,
that's the only specific recommendation that I received.
okay, this is where it's the line item, where, we're looking at line education, that include both?
Yes.
Okay.
But the change that was built is all in the community colleges.
Both current-
Request for additional funds. There's money in there for the school system is identical to last year. And it's without, Wayne, including any extra money for cameras.
Well, and just to give you, from what I'm understanding, I think the cameras is a reasonable thing, but I'm understanding that Middlesex and Coopers have already bought their own systems. This is in addition to Swift Creek. And Bailey has a system that has been recently put in as well. So we need to just consider that when we consider that funding. But I was still more concerned with current expense as it relates to supplemental pay and things of that nature.
It's identical.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I
So,
said.
so I guess the point I was trying to make was, you've got a General Assembly budget that will most likely provide an increase in salary to teachers. Would that be a fair statement?
It appears that way at this
Okay.
time, yes.
So I don't know what that'll be. That could be 4%, it could be more. But that poses some challenge for the school system, because that obviously bumps the amount of supplemental pay. And I have not seen anything from them. And in the latest budget that has been posted online, it appears that they have got some monies transferred into supplemental. I don't know from where, because it's all mixed up with state and federal, but I just want to confirm that we have not received any request from the school system for any current expense other than what they notified us on cameras and SROs, and that includes supplemental pay. Okay,
I think that's good.
all right.
And cameras, they may be using their 1.39 million in capital funds this year.
Yes, sir, I don't know, I don't know how they're funding that, but
Are you thinking with your other statement that some of these schools have put some money in it out of their own organization to put cameras in? You said Middlesex and you said Coopers.
I'm just telling you from what I'm hearing, Middlesex and Coopers have bought their own systems. How they bought them, I don't know. That's just,
Okay.
nobody from the school system has looked at me and said, that's the case. That's just what I'm hearing through the people that talk to me from various schools. So I don't know what their real needs are there.
Right, just looks like they would be putting the same system everywhere. I hope they just ain't bought their own system and put it in there, but that's none of our business.
If you want a uniform system, yeah.
Yeah, you do want a uniform system, but there again, we don't need to get into that.
Mr. Chairman, I just do want to, I've already mentioned the transfers from those completed projects. And looking a year out, I just want y'all to realize that that's basically one-time money. So a year from now, if we didn't have that one-time money, we'd be looking at 4.6 million from fund balance. And that's what we're looking at in the 2020 cycle that we'll do next year. But, so
What is one-time money?
the transfers in, there might be some left for future. Donna,
That 1.8.
the 1.8.
But you just made a statement that I think is incorrect.
What?
You said that's one-time money, and next year we'll be looking at 4.5 million.
All things equal.
All things equal, but you would really be looking at 6.3 million.
Yeah, I'm talking about the balance and factor, the 2.833.
Well, that's out of the general fund balance.
And that's debt service.
Correct, okay.
Yeah.
But is that health reserve money available every year?
Yes, that is, that's Medicaid reimbursement money, and,
Why such a difference there?
because we had it, and, I think initially, Mr. Hill wanted to use, like, double it, use about 600 and some. We were trying to balance the budget, so we put in, additional funds that he has in reserve.
But, so,
Where does that leave us the year after?
right, is that money gonna be available every year at 900,000?
Not necessarily.
No, it won't always be available at 900,000, but one other thing to note is with the courthouse project, we do have 2 million with that. I'm only using the amount of debt service for the courthouse project, which is 1.1, so we'll have around 900, a little less than 900,000.
850.
Right.
So that'll help for the
2020.
following year, and that'll be a big
2021.
help. But yes, the health reserve, there's no guarantee that we'll be able to match the 908. In fact, we probably will not unless we,
PEG grant reserve, is that reoccurring money or is that just one time?
That's one-time money, and that's money that we plan to use with part of the commissioner's room upgrade.
You're correct.
So we
So
wouldn't
that-
have that expenditure every year.
I got you.
Yeah.
And capital fund balance appropriation
That's based on the capital that we have in the budget.
for the school.
No,
Right.
for the county. So
For the
county
county.
capital items,
Mhm.
it's still part of fund balance, but we separated out to identify what would be a one-time,
Mhm. Okay, all
to
right.
show that separately.
so what this shows is the original budget versus where we are right now for next year. We're appropriating $1 million less, for capital.
Of course, as you always do,
We
when you
add.
go back up to the top line, your recommended estimate on revenue is 2 million less than what you're actually gonna get this year,
Yeah.
which,
I hope so.
Property,
Being conservative.
property tax, we will realize more than 2 million more than what we budgeted. Sales tax is ahead also.
So,
Yeah,
you do it like we should do it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
got plenty of opportunities for us to stump a toe in there and still not be in trouble.
right.
Z, can you just give us just a brief summary as far as, 3 questions? General government, the increase there, cultural, the increase there, and what is our total fund balance in the proposed budget in relation to our fund balance last year when we started?
Can
I
you
just
help
kinda
us?
wanna see where that fund balance has gone.
She can probably answer that. General government includes, county administration, tax office.
I understand,
yeah.
I'm just interested in where
Why is it 1.1
where
million more?
where that increase is, because it appears that other areas, for the most part, are flat or have decreased. Cultural has gone up a couple of $100,000, so that's a significant percentage. But general government is up about over $500,000. You don't have to tell me today, just give me some understanding of what that's all about.
Salaries and increases and stuff like that, I'm
Do
assuming.
you know where the drivers are? The-
Cost of living adjustment is part of the
Oh, yeah.
increase.
So is it the 5% and that sort of
It
thing?
is, it
Okay.
is.
Plus
And-
the, tax, the
Right.
the
Health
state
department.
retirement tax.
We're not budgeting for home health this year, so we don't have home health expenditures for the health department. So that decreased. Cultural, I'll have to take a look at that. It's probably adding on Miracle Park and new employees, some things with that, but I can,
So that would be P&R would be included in that?
that's correct,
And-
and cultural.
In the health department revenues, you can see we're going from 6 million to 3.7 million, and that's home health
Look at the fund
revenues
balance.
going away.
Sure.
See what the total fund balance is.
Any other questions on this first report? Who's gonna continue? Ms.
Donna?
Wood?
Okay, so then if you'll, the next item, what I have is follow-up items on from our retreat. We look at the stapled package. One of the issues that we had, that we want to resolve, and be able to move forward in with the recommended budget is on the Brazil Library funding. There was a question on the funding formula, and so we needed to get back with the library on that. Currently, what's included in this recommendation is the $872,350. That was based on the initial funding formula calculation or recalculation for the current fiscal year. And the email, I sent out an email yesterday morning from the library that indicated that in the funding calculation, they had included a little over 4,000 participants in the formula that they didn't have addresses on, and they had included them all in Nash County. And so it increased our percentage. So they went back and recalculated, and it dropped our percentage from 53% to 51% share. And when they did that, so if you look at the revised, if we left our funding flat, it would actually be less than what we funded them last year. It would, so if you look at the bottom portion, under the revised register and calculation, it's our current for fiscal year 18-19 is $850,739. The reallocation at 51% will be $839,431. But they're requesting an overall, a total increase in their funding of 3%, and with the 3% increase and then recalculated funding formula, our portion would be $864,615 or $614.
And again, what we have in the budget is that number at the very top. So if, either way, whether you go flat funding or the 3%, it'll be a reduction in what we have in the budget, so it'll help our fund balance appropriated a little bit, about 8,000 or 23,000.
So the,
How many years had we taking those 4,000 and putting all in Nash County?
I can't
I
tell you the
don't-
last time they redid the funding formula, but the last time we
What's
changed.
the matter with that question, Wayne?
The last time we changed our amount, I believe was in 2013-14,
Uh-huh.
or 2012-13. We actually decreased it, we were funding at 868,000, and we dropped it to 850,000.
Let me say, we were going with a formula based on population and usage. It's a two-tier, two-pronged formula. Population of each of the entities and usage from each of the entities. And the last time they had recalculated it was 2004. The 4,000 out of 40-some thousand unverifiable, because they didn't have zip codes mainly. That was not part of it until the original allocation was done this year, which we requested them to update their allocation. And she said she made an executive decision to put it in Nash because she thought most of them were Nash. But a lot of them might have been Rocky Mount too. So, so I don't believe we've been paying for those 4,000 in the past. Is that your impression? You're not sure?
I've never, I don't think we've asked for them to recalculate, so I'm not sure what they had in the past. They were including the mobile, the bookmobile, and they had included those numbers. And they didn't have bookmobile in this year, so she used the non-residents in Nash County.
Which our finance officer, doing her analysis, discovered, and that's why she and I met with the finance committee, which I'm on, at the library, and we had total support to take those 4,000 completely out, and told them between now and next year, if they want to figure out where all those people live, which is not a hard thing to do, they could recalculate it again next year. But so they took those 4,000 out, and that's why it dropped for us.
You got 4,000, didn't have a zip code for it.
Mainly zip code, right, and out of county. I think they were dumping all of them in our total, but they've all been taken out. And again, Donna
Where the 4,000,
did great work.
4,000 considered in the city, or?
No, apparently they either had incomplete addresses or no zip codes where you couldn't tell whether they were in Edgecombe, Nash, another county, and if they were in Nash or Edgecombe, whether they were Rocky Mount also. And so they were all lumped in the Nash County total, but they, as I said, they've been taken out, and that's the bottom formula.
Well, if we approve this 3% increase to the recalculated numbers, we always in the past have included it subject to the other two funding agencies, including the like amount of increase.
That's correct.
It seems
We
like,
don't know that now, whether they are, whether they're not. So whatever action we take, we should do it that way, correct?
Yes, and
Yeah, it
she
seemed
had
like
sent
me.
out.
seems like to me, the 4,000, you could divide them between the three. Nash, Rocky Mount, and Edgecombe.
Well,
Divided between them how?
Just a third.
Third.
You don't have zip codes or addresses of them, just give each group its funding.
Well, what I
A
heard.
third of them.
What I heard, Mr. Belfield, was they were gonna drop them all out and not put them in the formula, attempt during the next year to find out where they really are, and then put them in there in the proper
In other
place.
words, you're dropping them out for everything.
Yes, sir.
yeah, if you did it a third, that
And which basically does the same thing you're saying. If indeed it's a constant number.
right. I will say that the funding letters went out to all three entities with the original amounts.
Mhm.
And so she's having to send new requests to the other counties, which, I mean, the other county and the city, which you can see our percentage went down 2%.
Theirs went up.
Theirs went up slightly, 1.5% and 0.5%.
Well, Mr. Lamb, you on that board, in your opinion, does the library need a 3% increase?
Since we haven't done it in past years, we haven't increased it in several years. I'm comfortable, then again, I am on the board.
That's how you're answering that this time. As a board member, do
Yeah.
they need the 3%?
Yes, I believe they do, and again, that will reduce our budget by 8,000, because we penciled in that number on the top. But it's
Comment.
still more than last year by 14,000.
Do the commissioners understand where we are? Okay. Well, what's the pleasure then? We want to approve it with the 3% increase, or do we want to hold it what we've been funding in the past, which is,
I'll
You're
say,
saying the
I'll say,
3% pending the other two
yes, sir.
entities.
Yep.
yeah, I would say approve it, depending on that the others do their increase also.
Anybody got objection to approving the 3% increase subject to Rock Mountain, Edgecombe County approving theirs?
None.
Seeing none? Next item.
May I ask one question?
Sure.
If for some reason all three, or the other two entities do not increase, do we drop back to where we are in the current fiscal year?
That's what that
18-19?
would mean, yes, ma'am.
The current,
You say where
No.
you were, you
No.
would drop back to where you would be with the 4,000 out.
right,
With
you
that.
drop back to the 838.
839.
I'm sorry, 839, 431. So you drop it 25,000 if the other entities do not approve the 3% increase.
Ms. Wood, when you get there.
Okay, the next page. This is in our economic development section. In the current, what we currently have recommended is what we pay, what we funded the Gateway Center in the prior year, $322,370. The commissioners approved to continue with Carolina Gateway until October 1st. If we did that, my first question is, do we fund, their request for the current year is $336,000. Do we fund a quarter of the requested, or do we fund a quarter of what we funded in the prior year?
Or some other number.
Does the request for the new year increase based on a request for more money, or is it based on the current formula in place?
It's not the formula.
I believe it was an increase, and I do need to check on that.
I think it was a rounded formula.
I think it may have been a combination of both, an increase and because they recalculate each year based on their formula.
What I feel this board should do is agree to pay 1/4 based on what we paid last year, with the exception of adjusting the formula like we've been doing for the last few years, the current formula only. Wayne, does that make sense to you?
When they adjust the current formula, which would include investments, their total valuation in their county.
It includes total assessed value and population.
Right. Does that include any of the new industry that they picked up?
It would, that would be part
That should
of what it would do.
significantly change the formula, I would think.
It would,
Well, it will in some future years.
But it doesn't
I don't see
affect
it
this
happen.
coming year.
it's as it
No.
was January 1 of 2019.
Because it's total assessed value, none of that stuff is going on to this
Yeah,
year.
okay. Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
So the 80,592, unless,
I don't know what the number is.
okay, we'll check that
But I
out.
think that's, Donna, is that clear what to do?
It is.
Okay.
It is.
So that's 8592 adjusted to the formula.
Right. Now, based on that, are we gonna take the balance of those funds and put them
In these three.
in those three
slots.
categories?
That's our question. We don't need to specify each category. We just want to know
I think
the
you-
difference, do we put here or,
I think you need to put it there because
All
we're
of
gonna
it.
start funding that in
Okay.
October
okay,
or some point thereafter,
Okay.
whatever that difference is.
Okay, so
That's
the
what we'll
whole
do.
difference, okay.
Okay. Well, does anybody in the commission disagree with that?
that's what we thought, but we wanted to run it by y'all.
You're talking about funding position, that is October 1 after we have dropped out of Gateway.
Yes, sir. In other words, we're gonna keep the same amount of dollars, somewhere between 322 and 336 in economic development. We're gonna budget, the first quarter to the Gateway Partnership, and then the balance of that, we're gonna put over here under these three categories to pay for our own economic development
When you
department, which
say
we start.
first quarter, are you talking about quarter beginning in October?
July.
It would be July 1 to October 1, which is the time the board voted that, you know, we would be doing it on our own.
So what we'll do, we'll set up a department budget for economic development. It'll include the difference between one quarter and the other three quarters. So we would add those three quarters plus Susan's current cost will add to that economic development budget. We'll take it out of administration and put it in economic development.
Are we,
Already it's in.
You've already done that? Okay.
just so I understand this whole new scheme, are we going, or is it our attempts to try to identify that person and get them on board in advance of October the 1st, so they can go ahead and lay out a game plan, so on October the 1st?
Yes.
Okay.
I would
That
like.
is our goal, and when we discussed it this morning, we intend to have the position advertised between Monday and Wednesday of this coming week.
Yeah.
So if you got that thing out there, we'll send it to you. If you got any comments on it, and get it back to us so we can get it out there.
Yeah, we're still getting comments in, but if you can get us any comments on that job description and announcement.
Well, I've already turned in my
Yeah.
comment.
Right. I think two of them turned into comments, and I'm one that have not, but OZ, you'd have mine no later than Friday.
And my goal is to have somebody at least September 1. So there would be at least a 1 month overlap. But if somebody we identify wants
I know
to
you're gonna
come
hire an
earlier,
experienced person that knows how to do this.
absolutely.
But they just, when they, on October the 1, when Gateway goes away, they need to,
We need to hit the ground running.
maybe even before there.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We could put,
Okay, so the next item is with the sheriff's budget request. And in what we currently have and recommended, there were some salary positions, that were requested. We did talk over this in the original retreat, and I just put them back out here if we wanted to discuss them or leave them as we discussed in the original retreat. And then also to let you know, in the recommended budget, we do not have any vehicles in there. And so, I brought back that request because I know there was some conversation on the vehicles as well. And one thing to note, I just realized that the sheriff was requesting 2 positions. If those 2 positions were requested, I added the 2 new vehicles, but I did not add the additional dollars it would cost to upfit those vehicles, which would be another $12,000.
he actually said that day he had that money in his budget that he could handle that as it was. He didn't need that money. For the equipment for the 2 cars, if we approved it 2 positions, he has the money to upfit those already.
Okay, okay.
And since that day, I confirmed that he said that, he said that, so we don't need to be concerned with that.
Sure, okay.
My recommendation would be that we just go ahead and fund these positions. I mean, we got 56 dead folks in Nash County because of drugs, whether it be, if it was self-inflicted, somebody gave it to them. I mean, we got something going on we ain't never heard of before, and if we don't get the manpower out of the people to get it fixed, I just recommend that we fund these positions.
Staff would ask just for budgetary sake that the 2 new positions and the 2 requests to reclass to the general fund from the federal asset forfeiture fund, or actually one of them, are they both state or federal?
Am I right in thinking that I know that might have been created with asset forfeiture money, but can we count on asset forfeiture money to keep on paying these positions?
Well,
So,
the
I mean, if
discussion we
he's got
had-
the money, I would hope he uses it.
Right, the discussion we had budget day, I've looked at my notes again earlier this morning, was that it's just a hard decision to make. We really shouldn't be putting, because I've changed my mind on this from where I was, I'll tell you that, we really shouldn't be putting salaries paid for by asset forfeiture funds. We need to do salaries with reoccurring expense money. We need to do capital with asset forfeiture, just because it's not guaranteed income. And if we reverse it, if we don't get it, we still got to cover the salary. We don't have to, we can skip a year buying cars. You can't skip a year paying somebody.
Did that come up during these group meetings I mean, I just don't think we need to set a precedent hiring somebody with asset forfeiture money, and I can't say that this morning.
Oh, they've already
And
done
then-
that.
I know that,
Yeah.
I know
It's
that.
already- we don't
But
need to
then
continue
we come
to do
down
it.
the road and we have to pick it up. But at
That's
this
where
point,
I agree with you, Dan, that's where I'm at now,
Yeah.
but that ain't where I was at one time.
Well, thank you for,
Look,
I reckon, I don't
think about it.
know. Yeah, but I just don't think he needs to keep doing it, that's the kind of
Let
thing
me
we
just
done out
say,
with it.
I took the liberty to call the sheriff last night, and I apologize if I shouldn't have done that, but I just really wanted to see where he was at with this budget. What he told me was that he would be, I said, I want you to take these 5 things and prioritize them for me. The number 1 thing, without hesitation, was this evident technician that he wants, Wayne. That was his very first thing. But I won't get nothing else, that's what I want. I don't know what that deal is about, I didn't ask. The second thing.
Say that
is-
again now.
all right, the things that he's got on here that we're discussing today are, 1, this evident technician that is part-time, that he wants so badly to move to full-time. All right, the second thing is 2 new deputies. And he asked for 2 new deputies. I'm not prioritizing these, and he asked for the 2 cars to go with them. He asked for 5 new cars in addition to those 2 cars, and the equipment to go on those 5 cars.
So you're making a total of 7 cars.
It would be a total of 7 cars. And then he's got 2 positions that are currently asset forfeiture that he is asked to move to, well, what really, it's only 1 position that he's asked to move over to regular salary. And then apparently he's paying for the highway safety people with asset forfeiture, and he wants to move those to regular salaries.
Since we drug cars into this we drug A and B together.
I'm gonna re-separate them in
All
a
right,
minute.
okay,
And what he
okay.
agreed to. Donna, is that not what you got on your list?
That's,
As stated, that's correct?
that's correct, that's
Okay.
stated.
All right, Mr. Lamb, you want to say something before I tell you what he'll take?
Yeah, well, I thought you just did.
I hadn't finished.
Okay,
And he said, let me
Go
finish
ahead.
this. The evidence lady is number 1. He said he's willing to take 1 deputy and not 2 deputies. He said he is willing to take, if we'll take those two asset forfeiture line items for salaries and move them back into the general fund, which is that narcotics person or the task force person, and then the highway safety grant match that we're having to put in. That then, if we would furnish 3 cars, he would buy 3 cars, which is a total of 6 cars instead of 7 cars, Dan, because he said he would be willing, because he's got some people back to work. What you just tell me to me, and I can't read sign language. So
I
that,
told you keep them separate.
he said that will leave him very happy. Evidence technician he gets 1 deputy in the car to go with it. He gets those salaries adjusted back to general fund, and then we buy 3 cars and he buys 3 cars. Yes, sir.
Just to review the whole thing and putting it in the context of the whole budget.
Right.
What we were gonna recommend, and his accepting 1 deputy instead of 2,
You were gonna recommend that anyway?
no.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna recommend that we fund those positions no earlier than January, so eliminating.
Same thing in cost this year.
Yeah. And so I was gonna ask for April, but I was gonna settle for January to fund those 2 positions. So
Well,
if
it
we,
leaves us in a better place to
It-
do the 1, and then you
Right.
don't have a
if we do 1
predetermined.
and y'all wanna do it immediately, that works. Again, we're still going over our fund balance appropriated. but
What's the
that's-
reason for waiting to January? I mean, the budget's.
We're not waiting until January. If he's willing to take 1, then we don't need to wait till January.
Dan, you got to understand what Z is doing is fighting against this number right here on this other.
I understand
Okay.
that. I understand that perfectly well, but,
Okay.
there's some things that's kinda important that I think we got to work on.
Well, he's willing to
And
take, he
through
said,
the pandemic, one of them, and I'm hoping that's what it, huh? Do what?
Sometimes life is.
Exactly. If you spend $55,000 for a deputy and he saves 1 life, or if you spend 300,000 and he saves 1, it's worth it.
and if you hire 10 new deputies and you save 10
Who
people,
knows?
that's worth it too.
Who knows?
Right.
You
But
Who knows?
the other
can't
things,
put a dollar and cents on that.
the other things that we've discussed was his problem with using asset forfeiture funds is he says he has to reserve money for the following year. I don't quite understand what he's talking
Well,
about.
what he's saying there is, because he's not guaranteed he's
That
gonna
money.
get that money, he's got to reserve it out of this year, so he's always,
Always
you know,
have some.
he's got to have at least a year's worth of pay for them because he's hired them.
Right.
And that makes some sense.
Okay, and what I would ask then is that for those 2 reclass positions, if y'all are gonna move the match for the highway safety program, which is what, 25%, 50% this year?
It goes up every year.
It will change effective, I believe it's September, this year it's 15. In 1920, it changes in September to 30%.
That's right.
That's correct.
I would ask that these 2 reclasses to the general fund, if you are inclined to approve it, as he has asked, that you do it effective April 1. That means it will continue out of asset forfeiture funds until April 1. Then the general fund will take over for 3 months, and then he is assured that the following year, it's in the general fund. But for the coming year, it will reduce that $115,000 by 3/4.
I thought you were saying January, and now you're moving.
No, that was the other positions. That was
The
the,
only thing there is the way I presented it, he's taking that asset forfeiture money and buying those 3 cars, whereas you can't spend the money at one time.
okay. This year, y'all appropriated enough money for him to buy 10 cars, 10 Chargers.
And also,
He bought less than that, I think 9 actually, SUVs and trucks and things like that. He's also bought 7 this year from asset forfeiture dollars. And, so I just want y'all to know, he's gotten more cars in the last 12 months than I've ever seen since I've been here. But if everyone needs to have a car and he wants additional cars, then y'all do what you want.
Well, at some point, I really want to get that information of how much rolling stock he's got versus how many employees he's got. Because what I've been given so far, he's got 17 more cars than what he's got people to put in them. But there's something wrong with the numbers I was given, I think. Don,
Didn't he tell us that they,
Well, he said
they
were
got
sit-
some cars in
he
their
said they were
inventory that's
sitting
sitting
down
down there, they need to be in the junkyard or sold or something, if they're just sitting there, why not get rid of them?
That's a good
And
point. That's a good point.
So what they have, and I apologize, I thought they were reviewing this in the meetings with the vehicles. They have, and I'm gonna be off a little bit on the numbers, but they have a vehicle for each LEO, and they have 3 spare.
Elliot means,
A law enforcement officer.
Okay.
Sworn law enforcement officer.
they got more of that.
They are ready to be put on gov deals and surplus. They should be put on.
Well,
So you know that they've got, reasonably know that they've got 3 extra cars, and certainly I don't think that's unreasonable, because you got to have, if everybody indeed needs a car.
Right.
So every law enforcement officer we got is assigned a car.
Yes, sir.
That's courthouse security, everything
Yep.
is.
Courthouse security, everybody.
Is
So,
that normal in North Carolina? Nobody?
No, I don't have
Well,
the
courthouse
information,
security.
but I had asked them to provide that to the commissioners,
Mhm.
and I believe they were checking, most surrounding counties do provide a vehicle for each sworn law enforcement officer.
The difference here is in a lot of counties, you have courthouse security and you have civil division that serves papers. His argument is that his courthouse security people serve civil papers when they're not at the courthouse. He has combined those functions into a single.
Do we know that ain't true?
No, I'm not saying it's not true. All right, I'm assuming if
Well,
he
me
said it, it
personally,
is true.
if I didn't learn nothing else last Monday in those meetings, I already knew this, but we can't and don't run the sheriff department. The sheriff runs the sheriff department.
Sheriff's office.
Excuse me, gotta get rid of that
Office, not
word,
department.
Robbie. It is not a department, it
He
is an
is not a
office.
department head.
He's office.
He corrected me on that several times.
No, He read the Constitution.
well,
Oh, come on, Mr. Larry.
well,
We trying our best to fix this situation.
Yeah,
But
well,
hopefully you got to get back to the middle.
let me say this for
Yes, sir.
me.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm going along with that, with your suggestions here, as long as we are not pulling from some other department or some other fundings to make this. And if we do, then I'm gonna vote
You
no
gonna
on
make
the
that
budget.
fund
If
balance
we got
okay?
56 deaths in Nash County this year from this drug crisis, don't you think that's one of the most important things we got to work on?
Dan,
I mean,
I still ain't bought into that number.
No.
I'll just tell you.
Do what?
I still ain't bought into that number. But
Well,
I ain't had time to study it.
prove it
Well, but-
otherwise, I don't.
I understand.
It's pretty high statewide.
Yeah.
I was-
Pretty high, but
Yeah,
it goes.
800 some people in the last 3 years.
I just, like I say, I hope nobody kills us.
I just,
Well,
just let me
Fred,
say.
what happens is, we're trying to hold, what administration's doing what they're supposed to do, they're trying to hold that fund balance appropriation number down.
I understand that.
Anything we do this
I
morning.
understand that, but what I'm saying is, I don't want to take from one in order to hold it there and give to someone else that maybe they can get by
You're
on
not
something.
doing that, you're decreasing your
Well,
fund balance. with
I just
recurring
want,
expenses.
to make sure we're not
Okay.
doing it.
I might be wrong, I just keep in the back of my mind that I want to keep that fund balance at least 25 million, you know. And we might be teetering on it, but we got, some things we just got to do.
Well, there's three kind of fund balances, which one do you refer to?
The general, the big one.
The
Well,
biggest number, there's three
the
kind of.
biggest number,
general
yeah,
fund
I know,
balances,
some,
too.
it's all divided up, but, yeah.
Let me say a couple things. Number one, to answer your question about are we pulling from other people? We actually are. We have asked all other departments to identify 3% in potential cuts. Because,
Well, you're asking all of them, see, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if we sit here and say, well, we're gonna fund this and fund that, but over here, we're gonna reduce. And I'm not for that.
well, the reason we did that was
Well, you
because.
told all of them to do that.
Yeah,
and-
well,
and
they
there's
weren't
nothing
at the
wrong-
meeting.
There's nothing wrong with that.
They weren't there.
If they comply, they can get by with that, there's nothing wrong with
I
it.
don't want them to be like the school system, though, I don't want them to have to start buying their own pencils and paper.
Okay.
I mean, I just think to ask them to cut it if they can, fine, if
The-
you can't.
the
I think it's
reason-
ridiculous.
With that point, Mr. Lamb, these numbers do not reflect any of that yet, do
Yes, it does.
they? All right.
And
I don't think so, but I don't really know.
don't they?
What was the question?
The
Question is-
3% identifiable cuts.
Yes, the cuts are in this number from the departments that gave the cuts, but they don't reflect any of these requests from the sheriff's office.
I understand that, but some of them have already given you a cut, and it's
Yes.
in there. Okay,
It
well,
is.
It's in there.
I misunderstood it then. When you say some of them.
Not
what is-
all departments
What is that
were-
number that is changed from what we saw last?
If we added all the 3% back in,
How much money did you get that's changed since we saw that retreat?
I don't have the original.
can you estimate?
It's in the, sorry, I didn't bring my notebook, I apologize. So
Does anybody need a 5-minute pause?
Yes.
Before we go on break, I just make this brief comment.
Yes, sir.
That's not a good analogy to use supplies in the school system with the sheriff's
Well,
office.
I mean, it
Very
can
bad
get that.
analogy.
I ain't talking about the sheriff's department.
Very bad analogy.
I ain't talking about the sheriff's department, I'm talking about all
Because,
departments.
let me tell you, they've got adequate funding
I'm talking about
in the
all
school
departments.
system to buy supplies, but they choose not to use it for supplies.
The reason
The
we,
principal chooses not to use it for supplies.
the reason we
Yeah,
ask
that's
each,
what we learned.
each of the departments to identify 3% is because at the time, we had a 4.6 million fund balance appropriated, plus there had been a social media campaign to get more and more money. So we were anticipating more money going to the sheriff's department. So
But Mom,
that was the reality when we asked the department heads to identify some cuts, because we were gonna have to deal with a very, very high fund balance appropriated. Luckily, we've been able to get it down to 2.8 instead of 4.6. And we knew this day was coming when the sheriff's demands would be heard, and so here we are. And he's tried to negotiate a compromise, a list of priorities. My biggest fear, and I give the example, I once, in a county, the commissioners decided to give the school system the same increase for 3 years in a row. In the third year, it was like 10% a year for 3 years. And then in the third year, the superintendent came in and said it was woefully inadequate. I'm afraid that this particular budget, next year, and the year after, and the year after, will continue to escalate more than any other department in county government.
I think we all understand that's gonna happen. That it's gonna happen. But the request is gonna happen.
The request,
No doubt about that.
and I just,
And what
We're
we
treating
need,
them-
Mr. Lamb, if you and Ms. Wood would take note of this, if you would spend the time after you get the budget approved to take the sheriff's budget, since he has been elected, and show us what it has increased, actual expenditures after the year's over with. You got 4 of them behind you already. Show us what it has done, show us what the rest of the county has done, and then we'll know if we're out of kilter or we're not out of kilter.
Well,
And I think we're out of kilter, but I don't know that.
when you look at prior years, the problem is, it's not the budgeted number, it's the actual number. When you look at the current year, it's the budgeted number.
Right.
And when you look at next year, it's the
I
budgeted
want
number.
to see what, when it's all said and done, you close the books for that year. Tell us what's happened for 4 years.
Exactly what you spent on it.
Right.
Exactly. And that'll just be good information for us to have when we get to this point next year.
Well, so your discussion with him,
I'm gonna take that up when we come home break.
Okay.
I was gonna allow you to finish.
okay, okay. Again, we're just adding to the fund balance appropriated, so, and we are cutting other departments.
5-minute recess. I think you might need to.
Yeah, as you can see, 3 fire departments are asking for an increase. Westmouth, 3 cents, Whitaker's 1 cent, and Castelia, 3.15 cent increase. Takes them to 13, 8.5, and 11 cent, all under the 15 cents allowable by statute.
15 cents allowable.
Yeah, they're all under the 15 cent.
Well, that's kind of a no-brainer, I mean,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
can't disapprove it.
we haven't, since I've been here, we haven't disapproved any now, and I don't remember if any of those 3 have asked for them in the last few years, but I recommend that we, allow them to increase their fire tax.
All of them,
The 3.
all 3.
All right, that would
Sue.
take care of that particular item.
Mm-hmm.
We have a,
Fire tax or-
she's back.
Back.
Where we were was, of course, discussing the sheriff's budget.
I'll talk to you. I will talk to you in a minute.
We was discussing the additional items requested in the sheriff's budget. Ms. Wood, I'll turn back over to you.
Okay, so the request was how much is included from the 3%, the additional 3% cuts?
Or up to 3%, let's make that clear. We didn't say necessarily 3, but try to get up to 3%.
Right. And most departments were looking at it from an operational perspective instead of a salary benefits. So salary benefits really weren't touched. It was more in their operations. And so the decrease, so what was originally in the expenditures was $94,995,816, which was a $451,734 cut. So that's what we.
51,000 roughly
451,7, right, 451,
is what they identified.
right.
Half of that will come out of the health department. I'm kidding with you, don't take that for that. Well, that's good information. Oh,
We have no further comments.
you're not, I mean, you shouldn't take that approach at all. I just.
No, I'm saying, we've said, staff has said all we need to say, and y'all will be happy with whatever y'all decide.
What was that 451, what?
451,734.
Or just gonna identify?
It's included in this number, and depending on, we could add some back. Some of it was with the community college, we had identified something with them, they actually, that was in that original number, and they even adjusted it in the presentation on the 30th.
Probably safety number.
Exactly.
I'll pause in one moment just to get
That's
to
that
something.
smirky look I was telling you that you don't need to do.
Well, I wanted to turn that note he just handed me upside down so nobody else don't see it. It didn't add to the solution.
End up decreasing to, yes, but I'm conservative in my estimations. I hope this is the maximum that we would end up.
And obviously, that figure doesn't reflect 3% of the total budget because it doesn't affect,
Well, you can't, it
No.
didn't affect what most of the money is, which
yeah,
is the
yeah.
salaries.
It's really, it'd be about 3% of 12 million. Because a lot of those funds are, like school systems.
Just looking at the numbers real quickly, going back through what was suggested by myself a little earlier was the evidence technician moved to full-time, which was the number one priority. His second priority was to get one of those two deputies. The third priority was to shift that person that's on the task force back to general fund salaries, shift the highway safety grant to general fund salaries to match on that, and then to get 3 instead of 7 cars paid for by us, and he would pick up the rest of them. It appears it would be a cost of about $323,000 additional. Don, if you want to recalculate that, tell me I'm wrong, that's fine, but that's, I think, pretty much the number you're talking about. So what other thoughts from the board?
So we just putting 3 cars in this right here?
We're putting 3 cars in there. Well, he's getting the cars, but in our
But
budget.
in our budget,
in our
we just
budget,
put 3.
Right, he's gonna make it
He's
real.
gonna buy for the rest of them.
So we cut that to, then you got 2 figures, right? $76,500 for 3 cars and $18,000 for the upfits or whatever, equipment for new vehicles.
That's right.
Is that what you got?
That's right.
Okay. So that cut that from 263,000 to 100.
And
But all total, what we would be adding this
94,000.
morning would be $323,000.
Right, that's with the positions.
That's what,
and the capital, and the cars.
that's everything, I think, Dan.
The only thing I would ask is that you
I'll go on
consider
that.
delaying the switch for some period of time on the reclasses to the general fund to help with the general fund. He's got sufficient funds in the asset forfeiture fund, so.
Well, how he arrived at that suggestion was he took that number and took all that money and put it in cars.
But he's got more money than that in that fund.
I don't know what he got in the fund.
Yeah, plus yeah.
I don't know what he got in the fund. Donna, the other thing, when we do that tabulation of his full budget year, show us what was funded through asset forfeiture each year, so we know what that number is in there. Cause I got a feeling that number has gone up significantly, which helps offset some of the budget increases, but I don't know that
It's a
either.
different fund, though.
I realize
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
different fund, but if it, if he spent $500,000 and you took in $500,000, commissioners should be so concerned about that part of it. I need pleasure of the board or any other comments to move us along.
I'll make the motion, let's do this.
Does everybody, well, I have a motion on the floor I've got to take, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All right, does everybody understand the numbers, or we need
I
to?
mean,
go
do you
through
need a
these?
motion on that? We
Yeah,
approve
we
the
been having
total
a
budget.
motion.
Yeah,
All you need to
No.
do is
Recommendation
identify.
or whatever.
If that's what y'all want us to do, that's
No,
all.
he made motions, and
Well, I-
accepted it.
I just
I
want to
mean-
get, we talked about it long
No.
ago.
Not really.
We'll plug
I
it
need a
in.
motion.
Talking about 323, right?
Yeah.
Can you go through again
Yes, sir.
exactly what we're agreeing
Okay.
to?
You agreeing to fund the second part, do you agree to make the evidence technician full-time?
Okay,
You agreeing to hire one new deputy?
okay,
You agreeing to take the $82,000 that's currently paid for with asset forfeitures and moving it to the general fund?
okay,
You agreeing to take the $32,580, which is matched for highway safety grant, and I'm making the assumption that's for this budget year. Donna, is that correct? So we're gonna pick that up with general fund?
That's correct.
Does that start in July or is it
It was-
moved?
My suggestion is we start them in July.
Okay.
That's not Mr. Lamb's suggestion.
And we're talking about 3 vehicles.
And we are talking about buying 3 vehicles and him buying whatever else he wants this year.
If it makes you feel better, we cut that request from $263,900 to $123,000, so we cut $140,000 off the vehicle.
Well, we
Not
made
really,
money to
What
do
is the
that.
request?
So,
Because
so
it's
on
gonna use
the,
this
on the equipment,
Buy those.
is that for the 3 vehicles or is he funding that through asset forfeiture or what?
We're gonna do 3, he's doing 3.
We're gonna be providing 3 vehicles, and we would, provide the equipment for the 3 vehicles that we are supplying.
Okay.
We've got a little adjustment there to make.
And then down at the bottom, it's got vehicles, chargers too. What does that mean?
They were the 2 for the deputies.
So that would be 1 instead of 2.
Well, you got a total of 7 there, Wayne.
Yeah,
We are buying 3,
okay.
and we're equipping 3.
And are y'all comfortable with the fund balance appropriated, given the fact that the capital fund balance appropriated is going down about 850,000, that our balance and operating fund balance appropriated is going up less than 850,000. So compared to this year, with this 323, the 2.8 will go to about 3.1, but the 1.7 in capital from fund balance will go to about 850. So are y'all okay with
I
that?
think we understand that.
Okay.
Yeah, we got it.
We know the 323,000 is coming, adding to fund balance.
Well, actually, part of it is, yeah, one way or the other, it's going to
Either
fund
way you
balance.
look at it,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Okay, I think we finished the
Everybody
budget.
good with that?
I think we finished the budget
Well,
on the 20th.
Well, we're not quite finished.
Okay.
The back, the next page is, the fire thing, Donna, which we discussed while you were out, we're gonna honor the request for additional fire tax, we'll agree to that for. Then the last thing you got in here is budget by purpose and function, which was in here for a reason, Mr. Lamb, I'm not sure what it is.
This was requested by the board. I sent y'all the statute, I believe.
You did?
About a month ago, after there was some discussion, I think, at the budget retreat about, purpose and function budgeting. And we were just providing y'all with that information. You know, it would be a big step. It's kind of late. I'm not even sure if the school system would be, given there's not having a budget director, that they might have a hard time adapting to this quick. We're giving it to you for your information because it was requested. We're not recommending it right now unless y'all want to do it, which will be fine. If you want to look at it in future years.
So look, if you go to the second paragraph, it says the county, however, is authorized. But if you go down to the next to the last paragraph, it says the local school board, however. So
No.
regardless of what you do with purpose and function, it looks like to me they've got the authority to move around 25% of their,
Unless you specify in our budget ordinance 10%, or we can specify in our budget ordinance any amount between 10% or 25% deviation from the approved budget.
what it says here, the local school board may modify up to 25% of an allocation for operating expenses. Board of Commissioners may reduce the local school board discretion with no specified, but not to less than 10%.
Right. So you can reduce that 25% deviation down to 10 by ordinance.
I think it's probably too late. I just don't know that the relationship is, that would do anything with the relationship. I don't know.
My recommendation is that we not impose it this year, which y'all have the sole discretion to do. That we,
Can we take the action and do it effective when it becomes Nash school system?
you can do that anytime you want. Yes.
I would suggest we seriously consider going ahead and giving them notice that we intend to do it for the next budget year after the year we're in now. What'd be wrong with that?
Would that
I think we
be,
have to do it when we get to it.
When what, Mr. Bellfield?
I don't think we ought to do it now, do it when we,
That's what I'm saying.
in our next budget.
But give them a whole year's notice that that's what we're gonna do, rather than spring it on. Okay, we don't have to do that right now. Let's get the
No,
budget
no,
approved
well,
and
I'm
then
saying, I
simplify
don't-
after that.
yeah, and I'm not sure it would be properly placed in the budget ordinance for a future year anyway.
No.
On one question again, on the school system budget. Because me personally, I think the school system budget is headed for a more significant issue than they've got. That's just me. But here's my question. At the end of the day, if they do have a significant loss in their abilities to pay for their items that they have budgeted, what are the implications on the county for that?
We are their fund balance.
That would be my answer, exactly.
And I knew the answer.
Yep.
So the question is if, and I hope it doesn't happen, I pray it won't happen. But if the school system ends up with a more significant financial issue than they already have, and they're gonna have it because they haven't even asked for supplemental pay dollars, and you know that's gonna be a need. So when that happens, and they're $2-3 million in the hole, and again, God forbid, the state comes in and takes that over, then we're gonna be the bailout. That's not gonna be a way out, that's gonna be a bailout.
The state would.
Okay, I just think everybody needs to understand that is potentially what is out there ahead of us.
Yeah, the state would come in, look at the finances, and they would come to us and request funds
Again,
to get them back in the black.
I spend way too much time looking at school system budgets, but if you just look at the budget that they put online last night and compare it to what they gave us just a few days ago,
I had looked at it.
the numbers are just completely
Different.
different.
Didn't we ask for an audit, a full audit?
We had to wait to get through last night. They did approve.
Yeah, they
Approved
did.
it's been done.
But why didn't we go back 10 years?
They have,
That was a comment.
5 years, 3 years, we'll
Yeah.
let you know.
Well-
Last year, gonna let you know where they are.
Right.
Well, some on the board wanted to go back 10 years, but some of them didn't.
That's what I'm saying, somebody need to look at it.
See, they took our proposal last night, carried it to their board, and they approved it
It
last
passed, I
night.
read, because I read the thing in the paper
9-2
today.
vote, if all of them were there.
Evelyn and Reginald
They,
voted against
I
it.
think
They-
they've all there was 9-2 vote.
Right.
Yeah, Evelyn
But-
and Reginald
And
voted
so
against it.
now, that process will go into effect, and what that means is, myself and Mr. Lamb will be meeting with someone at Public Instructions to get this process started.
But one of the items that we stipulated and they agreed to was not to take on any additional expenditures.
That's correct.
And the way I heard it or read it was that they understood they were not to take on any additional debt. So that's different.
That's inaccurate.
That's different, and you just need to clarify that. Is that the way their board understood it?
I don't
Or
know.
did they understand that you've got, you know, certain things going on?
Right.
And you're not gonna go out and take on additional programs or expenditures?
Right. They had it in right wing. I'm thinking that's probably a translation for the editor of the article this morning.
Yeah. You know, unless I just overlook it, then
And
I don't
it
really,
was not the one in the room.
I don't really see anything still in the budget for the payback of the, so, I mean, that just adds to the,
Sure.
to the
Understand.
problem, which is out
Yep.
ahead of us.
So is it our intent, Mr. Lamb, we're gonna approve for the school next year, the exact same amount of current expense as we got?
That's what we have in the budget right now.
Okay.
And
And you said that completes our budget, so that's where we're at.
unless
If
And
you-
capital is where?
the same as
Same
last
as
year,
last
one
year.
point three,
Okay.
yeah.
Again, I don't want to bore everybody with the numbers now, but after the meeting, if you look at the budgets that have been presented just in the last week, there's a couple of numbers, and there's a variance, like Mr. Bellfield referenced, of about 200,000 in those numbers. So that's why I ask you the question, what are we appropriating to the school system?
Yeah, and for our new members' information, and she might have learned this in school, but the process now is we will present a budget on May the 20th, reflecting what's happened before and what's happened today. After that, we will have a public hearing on June the 3rd, I think, June the 3rd. At that time, you can approve the budget, which is what they've historically done, on that date, right after the public hearing. Or you can delay approving the budget, make amendments to the proposed budget, and then we will present at a later date prior to July 1, we will present a budget ordinance which reflects any changes from my original budget proposal that y'all vote to make after the public hearing. But as you know, we have to have a budget in place by July 1.
Last item, subject to have an effect on the budget, so we know it won't quite yet.
I think it's some tap fee increases he's asking for, so yeah, it would affect the ordinance, but we can present the ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
The water matter is tap fees?
Deposit fees.
Huh?
Deposit and tap.
Yeah, deposit and tap
Okay,
fees.
okay. Any other questions on budget?
Just a thought, when are we gonna address the SRO issue?
When are we gonna address?
When are we gonna address that? It's not in the budget, right?
It's not in the budget.
It's not in the school's budget.
It's
Not in the school's
It's my
budget.
understanding that we were going to wait until after the state approved their budget this year and then see what they do.
Yeah, okay.
Chances are it'll be next year. It'll come up
And
again.
it'll probably come up again next year, like you said. Other questions about the budget?
Just comment, thank you very much. Sausage isn't always easy to be made, but we made it, and, and we will, present y'all a balanced budget on the 20th of May.
Do you want me to read you other
No,
things?
no.
Thank you.
Has he put out another one?
No, it's the same. Thank y'all, thank you.
Item number 6 is water fees, and this is also related to the budget. I'm thinking each year when we do the budget, we take all of our fees, and make adjustments in them.
We don't know what he-
Whatever the staff comes up with, we consider it, and Mr. Boone, I'll turn it over to you this time.
So you have a copy of some recommendations that Don has prepared for you. A couple of fees we'd like to adjust. First, we have there in front of you the deposit fees. You can see we charge deposit fees based on the applicant's credit rating. Good credit, we do not charge deposit fee. Medium credit, and I forget exactly what the parameters are, but they're parameters y'all have approved before. $60, and if you have full credit, $100 is what we're recommending. I guess I should say, you see below what the current fees are, 0, 40, and 80, based on analysis of, so when an account is closed, we go back and we will evaluate what deposit was posted, what charges are outstanding, and we'll either take a loss or we'll refund the difference to the customer. And based on a quick analysis of accounts we've closed back 2017, we've been losing some money on some of those accounts. So this increase from 0, 40, 80 to 0, 60, 100 is intended to address that discrepancy in those account balances. So we'll submit that for your consideration. And then the second item, second box you have in front of you is the connection fees.
Question.
Yes, sir.
How do we do the credit rating part of it?
We use an online service, so Beth Massengale in our office will do a credit report on the applicant. And based on that service, get their credit rating. And based on their credit score, we put them in one of those three buckets: low risk, moderate risk, high risk.
Do you have any feel what percentages are in each one of those categories?
I do not.
Okay.
And this is to cover the shortage that occurs when they cut off and
Correct.
don't
And
pay
if
the
they have
final
no
bill.
account balance, they get their full deposit back. So we do not keep the deposit if they close their account with no balance due.
Is there
This
any implement period in there where they would get it back, like in 3 years, or is it kept forever?
As far as the deposit, no, we keep it, my understanding, we keep it in perpetuity until they close the account.
Okay.
Am I correct in saying that? Ms. Finance Manager?
I
That is
believe so, but I will.
It's
I
not
will
my
certainly
understanding
double
we
check.
have been refunding those back. Beth just reviews those as the account is closed.
Well,
So-
should we, this is just a thought for y'all two to think about. If we have a new customer to come on in three years, they never make a late payment, is it too much to keep up with to then refund their deposit?
I don't think, I
Well,
think
it's
we
not-
could do that, and again, I just wanna double check and make sure that we're not currently, I just need to check over, just to make sure we're not doing that, we could be.
Let's just don't worry about that.
Yeah.
I'm okay because the people that do like they're supposed to get the benefit of it, the more I think about it.
And if you're probably making if you're making your payments, you probably have good credit, so we're not requiring you to make a deposit to begin with.
That's good enough. I apologize for interrupting you on that, but you probably know what's on my mind that bothers me.
Right.
Well, there's something on here that bothers me. And that is, on the opposite side, we're charging $800 more, water and sewer.
You're getting into connection fees?
We ain't got there yet.
Yeah, let me get to the bottom of the page. So the second item is connection fees. So these are the fees that a customer would pay if they come in to establish a new account and it's not already either water tap or sewer tap at their property. So this is the fee we would charge the customer, and we in turn hire a contractor that would go out and install that tap. With these fees, so I'll start at the bottom. The current fees you see at the bottom, we charge, so for example, a 3/4 inch water tap, if one is not in place today.
Which
you
is your
come
most
in-
common.
Which is, yeah, not uncommon. Then you would have to pay an $800 fee to have that tap installed. So for a contractor to come out and physically tap the water main, set a meter, so you would have service. Those fees have not been adjusted since 2003. So that $800 is what the county has charged a residential water customer for a 3/4 inch water tap since 2003. So you can only imagine what fees have
Why the
cost
difference?
increased over 16 years.
Why the difference for the opposite side of the road? I mean, the line is running down on one side, and those that are on that side is cheaper than those on the other side of the highway.
Yeah, so historically, so I can't offer you a lot of historical perspective over that. My assumption would be, as opposed to penalizing, say, a customer that lives on the side of the road with a water main, excuse me, on the opposite side of the road from the water main versus maybe your residence on the same side as the water main. We've just established one fee, and the assumption is gonna be about half of those will be same side, half of those will be opposite side, and we ask utility customers to just pay one fee. So we don't pick winners and losers based on what side of the road the main is on. If you come in and request a tap, we just have one fee, regardless of near side or far side.
Explain the,
Did that answer your question?
No.
I think he was asking about the sewer.
Bench cleaning.
Okay, the
Sewer
sewer,
line.
yeah. Again, so, that is just the approach, that sewer's a little more complicated than the water, but we could have one fee.
No, but I can understand this, the water fee and the sewer fee being different, but I'm just thinking about a person on one side, on the opposite side of the road where the line is running, got to pay
What bothers them is if you're
installment.
picking winners one place, you're not picking them the other place.
I will say, this is the fee structure that I inherited, on February 11th.
I'm not blaming you, I'm just saying that. No.
you make a
but-
good point that
Yep.
we're not treating them the same. In my former counties, we did not charge extra to have to do a directional, or a bore, or whatever you call it, under a road. But here, the practice has been, we can consolidate those two numbers.
Yeah.
And have
Well,
a
that's
single
one that
pay.
slipped by me. I would, if I had seen this back when we started, I would raise the issue then.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, man.
you don't have
But-
sewer.
So what?
You don't have sewer.
I sure don't. Except for inside the city.
See,
Working with
You
you.
still don't have sewer.
I'm working with them now, trying to get it, and they said, well, the best we can do will be way next October.
They didn't mind annexing you.
Jonathan, what do
And then I got to
do you
pay
recall
a,
what the city does on the
and
sewer?
then I got to pay a
Is
heck
it
of a
long
fee
side,
when
short
we
side?
get hooked up in.
But typically, the main's gonna be in the roadway.
We have so very, very few of them anyway.
We have 10 times as many water customers as we have sewer customers.
Yeah, I realize that. Mr. Bellfield, what you would do then is everybody would be paying $2,000. Is that okay with you?
Well, I just don't see one side paying more than on the other side
That's good.
for installment.
Oh, I agree with him 100%. I just wanted him to understand it would be, I'm assuming the fee would be $2,000.
Yes, we just split the difference.
Is that what you want to do?
Well, just so they're all treated alike.
I agree with that.
Anybody got an objection to that?
Well, it would really be 1,900, right?
Yeah,
Split it
the
different.
new one.
$1,800 difference.
The new one.
1,900. Well,
No,
okay,
the
I
new
was
one.
looking at the
I'm
old,
looking
I'm
at
sorry.
proposed,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, okay.
Yeah, I'd
I'd
support
have
that.
trouble justifying why we do one way and one the other, I think.
I've never heard of it.
But you have so few of them anyway, so kind of, we'll make that change, then go ahead, Mr. Bud.
Okay. So again, the fees are just to bring our fees more in line with our cost. So again, you can see the recommendation on the water tap was 800 to 1,100 for 3/4 inch, 1,000 to 1,250 for 1 inch, and then now make the recommendation on the sewer taps for 4 inch, and we'll just make that $2,000, regardless of what side of the road you're on.
That's great. Do we contract the board?
We do.
Yeah.
And I will say, I'm not sure if any of you have heard from any customers, we've been having some challenges with our current contractor that understand the county's historically used, so we're actually have reached out to a couple additional contractors, Hodge, anybody? Well,
Mhm.
they've done some work on the county's water system before. We're talking to them now about starting to handle all of our bores and taps. And they do a lot of work for DOT, but DOT's been raising some red flags about some of the work that's been done, so hopefully that will kill two birds with one stone.
Based on your experience, what percentage of water taps are 3/4 versus 1?
They're mostly 3/4 inch. Most residential taps are gonna be 3/4 inch.
For 80% off,
80, I'd say.
that'd be my guess.
Yeah.
80 plus.
Yeah, 80 plus.
Yeah.
Most of our system is residential.
You comment, you said you would have an issue with the current contractor, or they can't
It's
get
my
to
understanding
it?
he relocated further east, so getting him back into town. And again, he has not we have not offered, he has not requested an increase in fees. He's continued to charge us $600 for near side or far side tap. So I don't, if the margin's not there for him, but he's indicated, he's supposed to be here last weekend, he's supposed to be here the weekend before that. He did not show up.
But well, it ain't who I thought it was, then, okay. I thought we were using a local one out of Rocky Mount, but apparently not.
Well, I think he used to be in Rocky Mount, down east. David, is it David Brown?
I don't know.
He's in the Brownsville family. but
Okay. I
he
thought
relocated
the
further east.
Bridewell and Rocky Mount was doing your tap, but I wouldn't know.
No, he's not.
Okay.
That don't make no sense.
Oh, I got his name, I'll give you, if you want another for it. Yeah, that's real small, that would probably be very responsive.
Y'all
Oh,
help me yet.
any questions on these fees? Everybody okay with them? Does this mean that, Mr. Lamb, does this mean that these are the only fees that we are increasing? Are we gonna see anything on building permits or anything else, or is this it?
I believe this is
I
it.
have not heard any changes from inspections or permitting that would change. This is the only one that I am aware of that I wanted to bring to your attention.
If we become aware of them, we will identify them
Well, I'm
during the
not- I'm
budget
not looking for
presentation.
one, I'm just
Okay.
wanna make sure that, since this is all we got,
We don't plan to right now.
finalizing the budget, you apparently don't intend to.
No. No, sir.
All right, that's all I have on the agenda. Of course, we will be recessing, to May the 16th to a joint meeting, and that meeting now is scheduled to be conducted at Northern Nash High School instead of Nash Community College.
We haven't gotten confirmation of that yet.
That's a tentative.
Tentative location.
I actually got a
You
text
did?
from the chairman of the school board
Okay.
right before I got here this morning, said it would be at Northern Nash High
Okay,
School.
okay.
That's what that's what the the motion should say, and if it changes,
Well, let me make sure that's what it
Send us a
is.
call.
we'll do a sunshine list.
It's Janice and Thomas, I ain't worried about that.
Good morning, just wanted to let you know the meeting for the 16th has been moved to Northern Nash House School. Brown Auditorium was not available, so I'm sure it will be at Northern Nash. Actually,
No, that's 16.
got a text, same text from Franklin and Donald, so
Okay.
they must have did that last night.
Yeah.
Mr. Lamb, you got anything else?
No, sir.
Any other commissioner got anything? Entertain a motion to recess until May the 16th.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Any, questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by like sign?